Iran is currently deploying swarms of mass-produced military drones that cost only $2,000 to manufacture. These cheap munitions are successfully destroying advanced American radar systems worth $300 million. This map of the Strait of Hormuz reveals a massive global vulnerability. The passage is only 33 kilometers wide, yet 20% of the world's entire oil supply is forced through this narrow corridor. Beyond shipping lanes, Iran targets the vital infrastructure of U.S.-backed Gulf states. Desalination plants provide 60% of the region's drinking water, and they are highly exposed to low-cost drone strikes. Why is a militarily weaker nation willing to risk total destruction by threatening the global supply of energy and water? To understand this level of geopolitical paranoia, we have to look past modern headlines and rewind 70 years to a classified intelligence operation. It begins in the 1950s with a single natural resource that dictated the exact terms of global power. Today's explosive Middle Eastern conflicts are the direct symptoms of a power struggle over oil control that began in 1953. In the early 1950s, Iran held a dominant position in the energy market, supplying 16% of the West's crude oil. Yet, under the existing profit structures, British corporations kept nearly all the revenue, leaving Iranian workers with fractions of a penny. In 1951, Prime Minister Mohammad Mossadegh altered this landscape by nationalizing the country's oil fields. He intended for the revenue to benefit the Iranian people rather than foreign corporations. This caused immediate panic in the West. Britain lost a massive revenue stream, and the U.S. feared Mossadegh would align with the Soviet Union to protect his new independence. The response was Operation Ajax. In 1953, the CIA and MI6 orchestrated a violent coup, overthrew the democratically elected prime minister, and placed him in military prison. In his place, Western powers supported a pro-U.S. monarch, the Shah, who turned Iran into a compliant partner for American foreign policy and oil interests. By destroying Iran's democracy to secure oil revenue, the U.S. generated the anti-imperialist sentiment that has defined the region for 70 years. Fast forward to 1971. President Richard Nixon pulls the U.S. dollar off the gold standard. Without a physical asset to back it, global trust in the currency plummeted. To stabilize the currency, the U.S. made a deal with Saudi Arabia and Gulf states. They agreed to sell oil exclusively using U.S. dollars. Then, the Gulf states reinvested those dollars into U.S. Treasury bonds to fund the American economy and military. In exchange for this dollar dependency, the United States guaranteed military protection for the Gulf royal families against internal coups and external threats. Securing compliant leadership in the Middle East became an existential requirement for the American economy. The PetroDollar cycle provided the financial framework for U.S. global dominance. In 1979, decades of resentment exploded into the Islamic Revolution. The Iranian people overthrew the U.S.-backed Shah, shattering the American hold on the country. Public anger toward American interference culminated in the seizure of the U.S. Embassy in Tehran, where dozens of American diplomats were taken hostage. The U.S. retaliated throughout the 1980s by providing military assistance to Saddam Hussein's Iraq in a brutal, multi-year war against the new Iranian Republic. During that war, Iraq deployed chemical weapons against Iranian civilians. When Iran brought the evidence to the United Nations, the international community declined to intervene or even acknowledge the breach of law. This solidified Iran's worldview. They realized the U.S. would continually seek regime change, and no one would come to their rescue. Iran's modern survival strategy is built on geography and proxies. They hide their military assets beneath the Zagros Mountains and fund militias across the region to keep conflicts far away from Iranian soil. After watching the U.S. depose the leaders of Iraq and Libya, Tehran began pursuing nuclear capabilities, the one asset they believed would prevent a similar fate. Iran's current strategy, from the drones in the Strait to the militia proxies, is a calculated defensive posture. It is the direct consequence of the interference that began 7 decades ago.